When billionaire industrialist Mira Deviani swept into the private dining hall of the Sapphire Crown Hotel with her 14-year-old son Aaron, the staff straightened as though a sudden wind of authority had blown through the room. But Mira barely noticed. She was preoccupied, her mind tugged in two directions, toward business updates flashing on her phone and toward Aaron, who had lately grown quieter, more withdrawn, as though carrying worries too heavy for his young shoulders. Tonight, she promised herself, she would fix that. Tonight she would disconnect from her empire and focus on her son. But promises are fragile things, especially when you've spent decades teaching yourself that emotions are secondary to success. She brushed a manicured hand over Aaron's shoulder, trying to initiate conversation, but his eyes drifted instead toward a dimly lit corner of the restaurant where a man in a worn jacket sat with a boy around Aaron's age. Their table held 2 plates of simple pasta, a borrowed joy the man seemed to stretch with every comforting word he offered his son, though the exhaustion beneath his smile was unmistakable. Aaron kept glancing at them with quiet curiosity, and when Mira finally followed his gaze, something uncomfortable tugged inside her. Not pity exactly, but a flicker of awareness that these two lived in a different universe from the polished one she inhabited. "Mom," Aaron murmured, hesitant, "they look nice." It wasn't what he said, but how he said it, softly, as though he wished their warmth could spill into his life too, that made Mira's chest tighten. She nodded absently, trying to refocus on her son, but she couldn't unsee the single dad's gentle hand ruffling his boy's hair, or the way he gave the larger portion of food to his son while pretending he wasn't hungry. The waiter approached Mira's table with a flourish, presenting menus embossed with gold, but she couldn't bring herself to open hers. Instead, she watched the single dad refuse dessert because, maybe next time, buddy, even though the boy's eyes lingered longingly on the dessert cart gliding past them. Aaron noticed too. "Mom," he whispered, "can we, maybe help?" Mira's first instinct was to say no. Boundaries, privacy, maintaining dignity, but then she caught the raw sincerity in her son's face and realized that this moment, more than any business venture or luxury trip, was the bridge between them she'd been searching for. So she surprised herself. She stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the other table, Aaron trailing nervously behind her. The single dad stiffened when he saw her, Mira Deviani, recognizable from business magazines, approaching him, but she offered a gentle smile and said, "I hope you don't mind the interruption. Your son seems wonderful." The man hesitated before responding with humility threaded through his voice, "Thank you. He's my whole world." There was no heaviness in the way he said it, only a fierce love that made Mira suddenly question how often she'd told Aaron the same. She introduced herself simply, not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, just as Mira, and when the boy shyly looked up at her with hopeful eyes, she felt something soften inside her ribcage. After a few minutes of small talk, she did something even she didn't expect. She signaled a waiter and said, "Please bring the dessert menu for their table as well." "On me." The boy's face lit up, and the single dad immediately shook his head, embarrassed, apologizing that he couldn't accept such generosity, but Mira gently insisted, explaining that she and Aaron would enjoy the treat even more if they shared the joy. Eventually, the man relented, and as the desserts arrived, chocolate mousse for the boys, vanilla brulee for the adults, Mira watched Aaron and the other boy chat excitedly as though they had been friends forever. The single dad introduced himself as Raghav, a mechanic who had recently lost his wife and was struggling to balance bills with raising his son, Anay, alone. He spoke matter-of-factly, without bitterness, and Mira found herself unexpectedly moved by his resilience. She asked questions, not the invasive kind, just enough to understand, and the more she listened, the more she realized how small her own recent stresses were in comparison. Raghav apologized for talking too much, but she shook her head, replying softly that she rarely got the chance to hear such sincerity. It was true, though she hadn't realized it until now. As the dinner went on, the boys convinced the adults to sit at one table, and soon they were all laughing, sharing stories, and peeling back layers of their lives without even meaning to. It felt natural, unforced, as though two very different worlds had found a seam where they could momentarily touch. At one point Aaron leaned close to his mother and whispered, "You look happier tonight." She blinked, surprised, because he was right. And then the unbelievable thought crossed her mind. Maybe she could do more than offer dessert. Maybe she could change their lives entirely. But wealth is complicated. It can build bridges or walls depending on how it's used, and Mira didn't want to insult Raghav or make him feel small. So she approached it carefully. When the meal ended, when the boys were nearly asleep from laughter, she said quietly to Raghav, "Please don't take this the wrong way, but you're doing an incredible job. And I'd like to help if you'd let me." He immediately shook his head, overwhelmed, insisting he didn't want charity, but she gently explained it wasn't charity, it was admiration, it was an investment in goodness, and it was something she wanted Aaron to learn from. "Let me support Anae's education," she said, her voice steady. "Consider it a gift of opportunity, not obligation." Raghav's eyes glistened, the weight of every struggle passing through them, but he still hesitated, torn between pride and hope. It was Anae who broke the silence by whispering, "Dad, it's okay." And when Raghav finally nodded, Mira felt something bloom inside her, a sense of purpose that no business victory had ever ignited. But she wasn't finished. As they stepped outside the restaurant, she made one more decision, one even she hadn't anticipated. "Raghav," she said, pausing under the glow of the hotel lights, "I'm looking for someone honest and skilled to maintain our company's fleet. If you're open to it, you could interview tomorrow." His breath caught, gratitude and disbelief warring in his expression. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll show up," she replied with a small smile. "That's enough." When they finally parted ways, boys promising to meet again, adults exchanging numbers with shy hopefulness, Aaron wrapped his arms around his mother, surprising her. "This was the best dinner ever," he murmured. And Mira realized that for the first time in a long time, she had truly been present. As she held her son close, watching Raghav and Anae disappear into the night, she understood that the unbelievable thing wasn't what she had given, but what she had received, a chance to rediscover humanity, connection, and the kind of happiness money alone could never buy.